Show number 58.
So what are you going to talk about, babe?
Well, what is very, very important is the world is totally lied to about everything. We've just been watching in the United States the fluoride and how they've been putting it into the water and convincing people. And they are relentless. There was 50 years, I think, in one city there has been...
San Diego. Has
which
been
I've
fighting
mentioned,
it.
by the way. 50 years they've been fighting it, and yet finally they lost. And fluoride's put in the water. Now, fluoride is rat poison. It's a deadly poison. It's
fluoride and silica.
Well,
It's an acid.
because a lot of people still think it's sodium fluoride.
Yeah,
That's
sure,
right,
that's
different
the point of
It's
this whole thing. It's
what is
not
it, type
what
of
it is.
fluoric acid?
No, it's fluoride and silica. Fluorosilicic acid.
Yeah, that's it.
Deadly, toxic. It's not what it used to be.
Highly corrosive.
Causes cancers. It pits the teeth, stains them brown.
Now, just as a point of interest, I worked as an electrician, because I've done many things. And I worked as an electrician in Sydney at Colgate Palmolive. And the fluoride, of course, is put into the toothpaste at that facility. They also make soap and all that kind of thing. But the amount of advertising done by these companies, and what really annoyed me, got my anger, was this little baby boy, maybe 4 years of age, and having him on the television and doing the ad. It was Fluoride. He couldn't say it right. Fluoride. He tapped his teeth. I thought, you evil bastards.
They make it all cute.
Yeah, all cute little babies. Now in America, what they're doing for newborn babies, they've got bottles, little tiny bottles, with a frog on the front, ninja character or something like that, and fluoride.
Infant pure water
Infant
with
pure,
fluoride added.
With fluoride added, right?
Man.
Now, what it causes is extraordinary. The arthritis, cancer, neurotoxins, dementia, causes the brain to be slow, and this is possibly what is wrong with America overall, irregardless of the fact that there also have been GMO and the chemicals that have been put in the food. Right, so you've got the toothpaste, which is almost universal, that is so good for you, you've got to have it, right? That's what your kid needs is. And this documentary we were watching was showing the tooth, how it's pitted with this yellow or bright spots.
Yeah, that's fluorosis.
Fluorosis.
Eats the enamel of the tooth.
Eats the enamel of the teeth. Now I recall that the Mohawk Indian in Ontario, where one of the large Canadian aluminium industries were set up, that the Indians that was living nearby were not using the fluoride in toothpaste or anything like that, but their bones were becoming brittle because there was breathing fumes coming off of the refineries. So aluminium is what we call it, aluminum in America. Right? So it is extraordinary how they can buy chemists and professors in universities by dangling a huge carrot and giving them what is called tenure, and they will say anything they want, the industry wants them to say.
It was back in 1946 where that doctor was saying, he was the enzyme expert.
Yeah.
Yes.
James something or other, I can't remember his last name. But it was, he was saying fluoride's what we use to kill enzymes in the experiments.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you kill the enzymes and you kill your digestive system, garbage in and it remains in your body, so you just become a waste dump for everything you're taking in and nothing's being processed and you're not eliminating anything. Now,
I'm just going to turn this microphone around the right way.
Oh.
Now Now at Colgate Palmolive, I was working shift work then, and this was in let's think now, 1971, 72 era, around that era, and some of the men that was working there, they had a kind of disease of the lungs that was due to the soaps that they were making. And you get the soaps that are made with caustic soda, and that is highly dangerous. So these men would breathe it in and they'd get scarring in the lungs, and of course it's something like a drinker with his liver would become scarred, well their lungs would become scarred. Right? So this was a very serious thing. And of course the companies, God bless them, were fighting tooth and nail not to give these poor men any compensation for their 20 years of service to the company and then finding they're coming down with an incurable disease because of the soap powder. Right? So when you get these Dove soaps and Lux and all this kind of stuff that is white to look at, and they charge more money for it, of course, because the women got to have that Dove soap or whatever the case may be. It is actually just lard from cattle, and it's yellow to start with, and it's highly acidic, I suppose, would be the best way of saying it. But the more they process it, the whiter it becomes. So the soap is becoming less, so therefore it becomes mild. Therefore the ladies love it because it's mild on the skin. Well, the whole idea is when wash your bloody face is to get the grime off as quickly as possible. You don't want soft soap that's not going to work, do you? So there's a balance between the beauty of the lady that's wearing it, and it's always some gorgeous looking woman that's rubbing the soap on her face, right? So it goes back to the same thing of taking a little baby boy saying Fluigard and tapping his teeth, how good it is for you. The lying, stinking, rotten bastards that are doing this to people all over the world, but in particular America, right? And all these things, of course, contributing to the lack of intelligence of Americans, and they're talking about it, that Americans are basically stupid.
Right? You had in Poland, they were forcing all the children, every second week, they'd force them into the dentist office, all in one big lineup, and they'd get a stick of actual pure fluoride paste.
Yeah, rub on the teeth.
And they'd force them to brush them.
Yeah.
They just killed 400 Eastern Ukrainians today as well.
Now, the taste of the toothpaste also is targeting to make the kids swallow the toothpaste, and that is highly dangerous.
Yeah.
So, but the big thing is, in America, not only are they beauty conscious, because everything comes out of Hollywood and television, and you've got to be the status quo. So children are the same. Right? I mean, I can remember my daughter, she wanted a pair of Nike bloody boots, right? It was $175. And I said, my carcass will be rotting for 100 years before you'd even get anything out of my pension to pay for that bloody pair of shoes, right? So I went and bought her ones that looked identical for $20, right? Wouldn't wear them.
Made in the same factory.
Exactly the same, right? So I was thinking somehow maybe I could stitch Nike on the side of it and then she'd wear them, right? But no, it was a fashion statement. Well, she's 12 years old.
Brand name on it.
Well, there you go. It's the Sigmund Freud, Edward Bernays whole dialectic. And they said, look, they promote sex imagery in subliminal messaging, and they promote it at children. It's
exactly.
The children. They could not give a fuck about the adults. They know that we're all screwed in the head. What they want is the children at an early age, because that makes them a stupid, mindless consumer. They have their soul from a child on through life.
Right.
I am a consumer. Words spoken by my youngest sister.
Yes, right. This Lorraine Murray is particularly annoying to me because she is talking about in Hawaii how the military is using these plutonium bullets and on the rifle ranges over there, or the cannon ranges. And she said that the cancer rate from 1863 for Hawaii was up 17,000
times. for 100 years, up to 1963.
I like 18,000.
17 to 18,000.
Right.
So, and of course blaming the plutonium. That's not what's causing it. It's a bloody toothpaste, and it's these chemicals that they're spraying in the air and all this kind of crap. And the food and the GMOs, right? It's all that's doing it.
PVC piping, you got your PVC piping, your fluoride, your crap in all your food. Like, we
The
really
wheat.
lost the taste.
Well, I was saying to you today that
Chemtrails on top of it all.
when I was in Melbourne, I used to go to Rembrandt's, where Michelle and I met. And you meet a lot of fellas there, they were businessmen and so on. And one guy was a plumber and a large contractor. And he said he had one of the problems that he was facing in the building industry was that the high-rise buildings was giving off a lot of green in the water. And I said, well, that's because of the positive charge is pulling the surface atoms off of the copper. And what they did shortly after that, as I was sort of been going there for a couple of years, I looked into how this could be solved. So I came up with the idea if you put a magnesium ingot and you rip a positive charge off that in line as the copper's coming into houses, because it was a big problem up in Cairns, northern Queensland. And I got known because I was dealing with this sort of thing, and I was also putting up the health clinic, etc., with colloidal silver. But magnesium, if you're short of magnesium in your diet, there's 320 diseases you can come down with, right? Which is bloody extraordinary. So that's the kind of thing I was looking into. However, what they did, they brought out an American company to put a sort of a spaghetti straw-like material, well, that's not the best way of saying it, let's say a tubing. And in the Sydney and Melbourne, 4 to 5 million people, they had these huge iron pipes, right? Now, what the iron pipe would do, when the water would come in from the water collection reservoirs, they're positive charged as the water falls out of the clouds, and they collect. And because of the sediment and been there for 100 years or so, the water remains with a positive charge. So the water would go through the iron pipes and they would be neutralised. So by the time it got to the treatment plants, and what I was sort of surprised at, there was 11 treatment plants for putting the fluoride, etc., into the water. But when they put this spaghetti type material, and we're talking things that might be 5 or 6 metres across in some of these pipes, and then it goes out for thousands and thousands of miles, really, through the different suburbs. And it became plastic. So no longer was the water losing its charge into the iron pipes. So I thought, this is serious stuff, right? So what was happening then, the water would go through and get the fluoride in it and all this other crap they put into it, so that when you drank it, and the houses were going from copper pipes into plastic pipes, so you were drinking straight off positive charged fluoride.
Well, do you know
The worst possible thing you can have going into you.
You know what they're doing now in the cities? I saw them doing an actual pipeline repair when we got stuck in traffic. And what they do is they dig up the ground, they get down into the pipe, and they throw this expandable plastic all throughout the pipe. So if they have a crack down or a leak there, they go and they'll do a whole kilometer at a time. And what's crazy is they have to keep it cold, right? Because when it heats up, it'll expand.
All right.
And it's plastic. Now, the tubing, like the actual piping, is your iron or it's your copper, right? Whatever it is. Iron, yeah. So it's your iron. But I saw them doing it. I saw the long spaghetti tubing that they were throwing in there.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and they keep it cold. And then
There's thousands of miles of it.
The only
Every street.
Well, the thing is now, the only thing they use copper now for is gas from the units. It's too expensive, right? And the copper that they used to have, like they've changed it down. James is going, oh, it's more efficient now. I was like, it's more flimsy though. And he goes, yes, but it's better copper. I was like, what about the old copper that they had used? He's like, the old copper was hard as a rock. It was almost...
That's annealed copper.
Yeah.
The stuff you bend up, that's soft anneal, that's a different thing. But that's what you'd use in your houses. If you're building a house, you connect out the front to your mains, and you run that in, and it's on a coil, and you roll it out. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what we
So,
have.
I might come in, say, 50 metres coils or something like that, or less. So, but this is where I got onto, thought that the fluoride was such a dangerous thing. Now they're putting it through and taking no action at all to stop it carrying the positive charge in the water into your houses, and therefore the buildings that were being built at that time that had copper in them from older buildings, the charge would eat away at the copper in the building. And this is what this plumber was telling me about. He had a problem. The pipes were getting eaten away. And I said, this is what's causing it. Right? So I told him how to fix the problem, right? Putting the magnesium in line with a positive charge being neutralised, because it would rip off and align the inside of the copper pipe with magnesium. And that's what it's done. Right? And it's good for you. All right, so I'll ring the Melbourne City Water. And I was on the line for about an hour. I said, I want to speak to your chief scientist. Oh, I'll put you through. Go to one office. Put you through to another office. Can you wait a minute? I'll wait online. Went through. Finally, George gets online. He said, yes, can I help you? I said, yeah, I wanted to get a water analysis for the water treatment plants. And I didn't realise that there were 11 of them. Right? I thought it was just one big one. No, there's 11 of them all over the place. And interestingly enough, he said, just a minute. And he hung the phone up in his office, and there's this woman in the office with him. Right? And she said, that's not that guy from Canada, is it? I hadn't said my name. Right? So he switches it back on. And he said, yes, can I have your name and address? So I said, yes, and I told him who it was. And he switched, just a minute, and he says, Tim, what the fuck are we going to give him? We haven't got nothing. We can't pull a rabbit out the hat. We didn't have any analysis. Right? I'm listening to this. How I wish I could have been recording it. Right? Anyhow, they said, well, it'll take us a little while to get it out to you. And I said, okay. So they shipped it out to me. And it took about 2 weeks. And it had 11 reports. Now, the area where all the Jews live and the rich people, Toorak, South Yarra, Melbourne, they had in it selenium in the water. It was coming from a different reservoir. And not only was the selenium, there was nickel in the water. And then I looked at the older areas, Richmond, this area, and these are older people. Okay? Now, what they had in there was 5 extra items that were coming from another reservoir, which I later found out what they were by checking it out. And they were caused by foliage from trees falling into the reservoirs, and because they're positive charge, they'll be broken down by the water and then transmitted through the pipes, through the reservoirs, from the reservoir, through the tube treatment, then pumped into the old age peoples, and these 5 things caused cancer. And I thought, there's evil, evil bastards. And that is why I set up the clinic in Melbourne with colloidal silver and so forth with my nephew. Now, what I intended to do, and my nephew is a bit of an idiot, right? He's the type of guy, he's very much like my brother. Throw a word at him, he's an expert on it, right? And he has no idea, he just ad-libs as he goes along, right? My brother used to do that. And I'm just the opposite. I won't say nothing unless I know what I'm talking about, right? Otherwise, keep your yap shut. So I said, now what you can do is you can buy a CD that'll give you the street by street house numbers and the telephone and the names of the people inside. So you can then take your van out and be in a street and you can call the house and say the truck is out the front. If you want colloidal silver, the water, we'll give you the benefits of it. We'll give you a drop off a brochure. You don't have to buy nothing, and we'll be coming back next week at the same time. If you want some water, you can buy it. This is what it'll do for your health. Well, that of course never got off the ground because my nephew was shot dead. I got the phone call from the government, asked me, "Are you the man who's saying you're Christ?" He was a senator's secretary. And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "If you don't stop doing what you're doing, those above us will kill you." So I'm thinking, yeah, who's above us? Who's above the government? This is a senator from bloody Canberra, right? And this is the time of John Howard, when that evil bastard was the Prime Minister. And he's the one behind the Bali bombing and the shooting of those 32 people in Port Arthur.
Which took away all the weapons.
That was to disarm the people,
yeah.
Right? This is all to do with the CIA and the Mossad. It was Mossad killers that did that.
Well, that's exactly the reporting officer that was on the actual homicide scene. He said, look, if this was the one person that they said he was, then he had a satanic accuracy.
Oh, yeah. Now, what I heard was from the fellow that told me this was Joe Valachi. And he was the man that was an explosive expert working for the army, and something happened. He never did tell me what, but he was on a disability pension. And he wasn't happy with the army because they screwed him, right? So he was suffering. And he contacted me and told me who was behind and how they did it. And it was Israeli soldiers that were in plain clothes, right? But they were firing from the hip with rifles. Right? Now, I've done a bit of rifle shooting and so forth. My brother was an expert shot. Right? And you'd have to be an expert to do what they did. 32 people got shot in the head. All tourists. So that, of course, said, we've got to do away with all the arms in Australia. So that was the same push that they're doing in America, and I'm saying to America, don't give up your arms. Right?
It's actually doing the opposite now.
Buy more. Right?
That's exactly what they're doing.
So that was that story. Now, he told me about the Bali bombing, which again was John Howard was involved, the Prime Minister. And he had given the okay to go ahead with that. And that was to bring the Australians into line, because Australians are a bit more sensible and more intelligent than the Americans, because they're not as damaged with the chemicals as the Americans are.
Well, just before the Bali bombing, you had 100,000 Australians in Sydney protesting, saying, no, we're not going to war with Iraq.
That's right.
So.
Well, that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Right. So what he told me was that they had these three morons, these Muslims, that had their own van, right, and they get plastic explosives that has an expansion rate of about 3,500 feet per second, right? And when you look at what happened there, and I had people talk to me and over the internet when I was investigating it, they were the expansion rate of the gases was not enough to do the damage that 147 buildings were affected by this explosion. So what they used, what Valachi told me, was the same type of weapon they used at Fukushima. It's like a thing about that round, and they dropped it into a drain about 10 feet deep. Right? Then the van pulled up over it, and there was two explosions. Right? The van went off, right, and didn't have virtually no damage. He said, but when this other thing went off, there was a crater about 50 some odd feet across and about 10 foot deep. And he said if they would have went in straight away, they could have tested. It's got a slight radiation signature that they have with the detonator that's used in an atomic weapon. He said of all of the huge bomb explosions in London and England when they was fighting with the IRA, they'd have trucks loaded with explosives. None made a hole in the ground. Yeah. He said, because there's a hole in the ground, and he said, then he sent photographs of the structures that were within the closest proximity, where all those 122 or so Australians died, that the rate of explosives, he said, was 1 million feet per second. And it took the concrete off the rebars. It was so ferocious that here's the building, that's made of concrete and rebars. All the concrete's gone, the rebar's still there.
Remember that video you're watching? Those pictures of that.
Yeah,
Well, you had windows blown in from 5k away.
that's right.
5k away, windows blown
Now,
in.
one guy who I spoke to, he said that he was walking several hundred feet away from where the explosion took off. And he said it was a white ball of bright light. Huh? This is the Saddam thing. This is what they used at Fukushima. Same thing, right?
Not your average.
And he said there were people
fertilizer.
walking along and they evaporated. Just blown to smithereens, right?
Sure.
Just vanished, right? So it's many more killed there than what they're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So he then told me about how 2 ships had left Fremantle to go to Aceh. One was American and one was Australian. They pulled out and then they come back into port again. Then they left again. And they were standing off Aceh in Indonesia, some 500 kilometres. And a nuclear device, he said 9 megaton, was dropped between India and I guess it's Indonesia. And it caused a tsunami, right? Which is what hit India. No one's talking about that and how many people died in India. All the islands, but of course Indonesia. So I said to him, right, if you don't stop what you're doing, I'll kill you. And he raved on and blah, blah, blah. A week later he was dead. You're talking to me. I said, listen, right? You're talking to the wrong man here. Give me the information, right? It's not healthy for you. I killed him. So, we have the fluoride in America now. The Fukushima thing, now we now know that Galen Winston, he's saying that he was swimming in the bloody pools. He's the one that developed all the handling of these atomic reactions in the nuclear plants.
Yeah, the cesium pools.
The cesium pools.
Which they fear us all and say, look, 2 grams of this stuff would make Manhattan uninhabitable for the next 100,000 years.
That's
Bullshit.
right. So, when I listen to him talk, 'cause you can tell when people talk, they're experts, right?
Yeah.
It's, why don't you? Right? He's doing all the tests, he's getting a powderised bloody uranium, putting it on his tongue, and putting a bloody Geiger counter in his mouth, and then putting it behind his back, and all this kind of thing, doing all sorts of fancy things. You think, shit. Right? He said, but what they did was they keep on increasing the level or decreasing the amount of exposure you can have because it's so highly dangerous. So he said, what's he doing with it? They're putting it in the ground because it's so valuable. They don't want people to have it because if people realised just how efficient this stuff was and it was harmless, you could have a nuclear reactor sitting in your basement.
Not only that, but the amount of waste that they put in the ground, that's enough to run the planet for the next 1,000 years.
That's right.
It's already there.
So that's what he's on about. So then we go to how do they detonate these weapons? And of course now we're looking at this Bruce Cathy, born in 1930, an intelligent man. He said that when the harmonics of the planets, and this is something that most people don't realise, that if you imagine you've got a ball on a string and you hang it off the ceiling, right? Let's say it weighs a pound, and you go, plong, you can plunk it and it'll make a sound, and it's giving off a harmonic sound, a resonance, right? Now, the same applies to the sun gravitational lines of force that's holding the planets in their orbits, right? So we've got the big planets like Jupiter, and then the smaller one is Saturn, and it goes out further. We've got Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And then on an inward scale, the most powerful one that affects the Earth is not the sun, it is the moon. So when you were able to find the exact times of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I couldn't find them. I come up with different hours. So I thought, hello, if you've got different hours to me, and then I've been able to find the internet, why would this be such a spectacular, difficult thing to find? Right? Now, I recall when I went to NASA, I asked the people at NASA, what time did they walk on the moon? I didn't know. This is NASA. Didn't know. The information is
the biggest accomplishment in the history of mankind.
What actual moment in time was it? It took 2 weeks. They finally faxed me with the answer, right?
What are we going to tell him? It's not like the
Same bullshit, right?
What are we going to tell him?
Same thing, right? So I was getting quite well known by the time I hit Australia, right? So I'm looking at the times, and he's saying the sun had to be in a certain position because of the harmonics of the sun and the earth being held by the sun. It's got a musical note, if you like, and it varies because of the time of the year. It's closest during January and furthest during July the 4th, furthest away. So you can say there he is, pinpointing America, July the 4th. So being the darkest, if you like. But the way the planets are set up is that because you're on a 23.5 degree angle of the axis of the Earth, you're either leaning towards the sun, right, when you're furthest away from it, otherwise Europe and North America get burnt up. So you've got to be furthest away when it's summertime and you're leaning towards the sun. Australia, on the other hand, can be closest to the sun on January the 4th, but it's on the downside, right? So when you've got winter in America, right, it's leaning away from the sun, right? So it varies by that position as you're going around the sun. With the angle stays the same, but the sun itself is further out, coming back in and closest, and Australia's down here, right? So it doesn't get the same amount of heat. It would, if it was leaning the other way, it would be burnt up. America would burn up. There'd be no life, right? So that's one of the miracles of the Earth. Added to that, the solar eclipses, of course, it occurs, and we can measure the solar eclipses and gives us key dates because it's a creation, and it's based on the width of the pyramid. One pyramid width is in pyramid inches equivalent to 25 years, 1 inch equal to a day. Therefore, synchronistically, 25 degree latitude and the moon goes up and down in the cycle between the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. So it's the moon position. Now what this man did, he realised that he was in trouble, and he went to see the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and he was a likeable sort of a fellow, and his name was Holyoake. And he got a letter off him that he said he wanted to write a book, and he didn't want it to infringe on any of the security of New Zealand. And he told him what he was able to do with the nuclear weapons, and he said he could predict what time that they would be setting off nuclear weapons because it's in all this harmonics of the planets, you see, and the sun in particular. So Holyoake gave him a letter. Said, yes, no problem. That's what kept him out of trouble. And he was approached by the CIA to go work for him. And he said if he went to work for the CIA, next thing he'd be dead. Right? So he didn't do it.
In the contract, it said something about you sign your life away.
Sign your life away, and you have all this money in the world, and your family lives great, and blah blah blah, and then you get a bullet. So he didn't do it. But I was looking at the drawings that he drew, and he was basing it on the sun. Right? It's not based on the sun at all. It's based on the moon. So when we look at Nagasaki, the one was a plutonium bomb, and the other one was, I think it was combined uranium and something else.
Nagasaki was big boy plutonium bomb.
Okay, Nagasaki was?
Hiroshima was
okay.
uranium, yeah.
Now, what happened there was, it's all to stop Christ. This is all to do with Christ. The biggest thing in the world that they're keeping quiet about, and we've got these tweets that you've just been talking about.
Well,
I'll give you an example before I talk about that other business. We're just talking about how many tweets we've got because she's been going out and tweeting people, and you get level. Not one thumbs up. Not one. It's an absolute impossibility to have no thumbs up when you've got 11 to 12 to 15 to 20,000 views. Right? Someone's going to like it.
We have 7, but they were
7? Oh, well.
They're not in the recent lot. In the last
right,
4,000. Most recent
last
4,000, there's none.
Since March last year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Now, just to for the people that's listening, most of my followers are standing in this room.
we are a community of 4.
Well, there's equality too, you see. I mean, you get some lunatics coming along, but the reality is it's quality of belief. You can make miracles happen if you believe, right? But a lot of our people, they fall off the line, then they hate me and they go off with someone else, they come back again. I mean, it's stupid. You either believe it or you don't, or fuck off. That's my attitude, right?
Well, it's like
Like when I did, it's not an election. If you're that dumb, sorry.
Write that in stone.
It's right.
It's like I told you in Cedric. Everything that comes out of your 2 mouths, I believe, and that's it, that's truth, that's it, I don't care.
Well, I've made a habit of telling the truth, right? It is the truth that will set you free. Actually, the message of the truth will set you free, it is talking to the Jews. If you look that up, right, which I am going to put together this latest PowerPoint, and apparently people that do listen to this are more inclined to listen and not to actually watch the PowerPoints, because the PowerPoints themselves are very, very full and miraculous of wonderful things. Now I'll get back to this plutonium bomb. We measured the moon at the moment of the detonation. It is 1% full, so it's probably 1.1111. Right? I didn't bother to work it out to that fine a detail. I can.
The way things
I probably
go,
will.
you can say
it would
that's
be
probably...
right? Within a few seconds, because it's changing every second, right? The distance changes every second. The distance to the sun was 942, blah, blah, blah. So there's your Jesus number, 942 verses, right? It's the First Chronicles. It's also how many days old I was living at the Rothschild Avenue. Hello, Rothschild. Don't look no further. It's not the Queen. It's not Prince Charles. There's no one else. It's fucking Rothschild. That's the beast right there, right? Money is the root of all evil. Right? So there's another little point. So, how old was the moon? Well, the moon goes in its cycle. You've got 29.53052 days, right? So each date and each second, the date of the moon is getting older in that 1 month period. Right? And the age of the moon was 1 day, 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds. Hello? Now, I think that is pointing towards me when they pull off this greatest bullshit thing of all time. Right? Nagasaki. So then, I start measuring from the moon position to New Zealand. Now, why New Zealand? Well, first off, Bruce Cathy. Right? But primarily, the two latitudes at New Zealand's islands, there's two main islands and a small island, I think a Stanwell Island, off the south coast. You draw a line across there, and then the distance between the two latitudes is 888 miles. And Cook was the first one to work that out. He stayed in New Zealand for 6 months. And he was sailing to New Zealand after he'd been in Tahiti, following on the footsteps of Captain Wallace, who was on the SS Dolphin. And then he came out on the Endeavour. So you say it the way it's written. It's Endeavour. Right? It's all based on Satanism, right? He ended up 666 days, he landed on the island in Tahiti, which was King George III island, before it became Tahiti, because for some strange reason, the French and the English have been fighting for 100 years, and the French end up with Tahiti. They gave it to them. And then they returned 18 years later to destroy a pyramid that has a footprint that is the same number as the age difference in days between my grandfather and I, who should have been the king. Right? So, hello. And where they was measuring on the mountain, on Tahiti, 7,353 feet, the height of this mountain is, and I've been there on my way to America, during a solar eclipse, right? In 1967. I was there in November in the solar eclipse. So, the height of it is the area of the Shroud of Turin, which is when it comes back to the Pope, who has recognised my face on the Shroud of Turin. Nothing else I talk about, just the Shroud of Turin's face. He believed. I go, oh, Lord, I've done all these years of bloody mathematics and so forth. He doesn't give a fuck about any of it. He wants to see my face. That's it. I could have done nothing. Just sent him a fucking postcard with my face on it. Right? It's him! Oh. So anyhow, getting back to New Zealand. When you look at the house that I was living in with Michelle, it is 5813 kilometres, which is the height from the South Pole, which is the height of the pyramid with the capstone in place. Okay. So you go across to New Zealand and you go to the most easterly point, which you can do that with Google Earth. It'll give you the longitude and latitude. You can't do nothing else with Google Earth because all the numbers of distances are out. However, the measure from there to the South Pole is this 5813 number in kilometres. I thought, ooh, interesting. So you then go across to the other side of the island, this is in North Island, and you have the same latitude, and you've got the width of the island, so that gives you a point across, which is all on that 5813 kilometre distance, but it's also 3168 kilometres around the Earth at that latitude, which also runs through Nell Street. Right? Very interesting. So then you go to from one side you go to the moon location, come down to where I was born in the hospital, and then goes back down to the location again, and again it spells out the numbers of my name and birth. So in other words, you would expect the Creator, as kings did, or in the old days, leaders of nations, when they built something like Babylon or something like that, whoever was behind the city of Babylon being built, the height of the walls would be in cubits, and that's his name. So everything was built in the gematria of the languages of the time, and this goes for all races, whether it was the Assyrians or whether it was the Babylonians or whether it was the Greeks. They always used gematria as a religion. So I revived it back in when I was in Port Alberni in Canada in 1990. When I finally got on the internet, there was no such thing as gematria, right? Until I found it. Right? Then I started talking about it. Then it caught on. So you lob it over the fence, and people run with it, right? And they start doing all the numbers. Well, you find that the Earth is based on 3168, and one of the PowerPoints, which no one watches, but it's there. There's about 30 different 3168s. There's Stonehenge, the distance around Stonehenge is 3168. It's 316.8 feet around the Saracen circles, and there's another one. So on and on it goes.
For new listeners, you better tell them what 3168 is.
3168 in Greek is Lord Jesus Christ, because Lord is numbered 800, Jesus is 888, and Christ is 1480.
And just give them one quick example.
Well, I should explain what Lord Jesus Christ, that's the Trinity. You've got Lord Yahweh, Jesus, the soul of Yahweh, who leaves and said, if I don't go, the Father won't be able to send the Comforter. Then he says another verse, if I don't go, I will not be able to send the Comforter. So who is it sending the Comforter? Well, Jesus and the Father are one. He said that himself. And I will be coming back, the Father will be coming back, and that's Christ. So when I get back here, it'll be the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, when we took the cure to New Guinea, right, when the country was handed over by Australia to independence, I was 31.68 years old. And that's where we took our cure of the diseases up there, which of course you'd think would have been world news, cure for AIDS and malaria and everything else. Not one word was spoken. We actually went to the newspaper there, and that lady said that she is going to send this out. One button she's going to press that. It's going to 148 bloody newspapers around the world. Front page, cure for AIDS in New Guinea. I said, I won't go. Yes, it will. And I press a button. She's typing all night to get this thing on the front page, right? It didn't go, did it? Right, hello. We go to the local radio station. We talk for an hour and a half or more to two people there. This is the greatest story of all time. This is going, yes, definitely, absolutely, and they're recording it. And all we're going to do is tweak it a little bit to make it fit all the advertising and so forth for the news. It never went either. What did happen, however, it got translated into kitchen, what does it call it? What's the language up there? Pidgin English?
Pidgin.
So in Pidgin, and was broadcast across the South Pacific in Pidgin. Right, so next step, we go over to Fiji. Right. Got arrested, of course, and thrown out the country. But that's not the point. We got these cure for diabetes too, which is that each country you go to, there's a different disease that you're targeting with, right? And so it was easy to find out, if you want to know what your disease is going to be, go into your supermarket, and what's the exact right height for a woman to pick something up and put in a basket. That is what's going to kill you. Right? That's what causes diabetes, because of the particular makeup of human beings differs between tribes, right? So you've got the people that are white, they have a higher tolerance for AIDS. You've got the black people have no tolerance for AIDS. You've got the Fijians, they've got a tolerance for AIDS. Their big cure over there they needed was diabetes too. And what's that caused by? The oils, right? So we're telling the people, go back to using coconut oil. It's the only thing you use to stop diabetes too. And you don't have to use calcium hypochlorite to clean the receptors of the docking points on the cells, which for the insulin to dock in, to open the wall up of the cell to let the sugar molecule through, because they're all specific shapes. It's all mechanical. Right? It's all like machinery. So it's a key. It's the shape of the sugar molecule goes in through the hole of the sugar molecule hole, which is opened up by the insulin. But the plastic gets on top of the receptors and insulates it, and it's like insulating your car battery with a piece of plastic. And you try and start it and see what happens. Nothing. Right? You've got to get the plastic off. Well, the calcium hypochlorite, which is pool chemical, you can buy in any pool store, cleans it off. Okay, so that... Now, what's ironic about that, the man who was chopping the legs off over there, a very brilliant man, and I know him, he's my nephew, right, by marriage. He was the man who's doing what is called the chop, taking the feet and then whatever off of these people that have the diabetes. He immigrates to Australia. He's a neurosurgeon from India.
No, orthopedic.
Orthopedic surgeon, sorry. And he goes to Australia. When you go into Australia, if you're a doctor, you've got to go work in the bush, and then you can then go into work after so many years. You can go work in the big cities. So he got offered $500,000 by a Jewish organisation to work for them in Melbourne. Online, he's looking for a girlfriend, and who's he find but my niece? Right? So I go to the house for a meal, sitting there with him, and I'm talking about all the things that we cured in New Guinea and so forth, and the diabetes and so forth. And he goes pale. He wants to leave the room because he was the doctor chopping off all the legs, hundreds of them, of these people in Fiji. When we're curing them, after he had been there, we're curing them. When me and my little sweetie here go over there, right? And then find out that he calls me uncle, so I call him nephew, right? Who was the man chopping their legs off. And he didn't want to talk about it, he went straight to bed.
Now listen, I've just got a little message. I'm about to press a tweet to Netanyahu again. You vipers, liars, murderers, warmongers, your Jew world order is dead. I'm back and I am Essene.
And pissed.
Well, you know what I've realised? This whole Gaza thing, it's just a distraction for what they're doing in Ukraine. They killed 400 people.
Well, that's what I
today.
said, stop watching it.
Well, they killed 400 people today.
Stop watching it. Who gives a fuck? Stop watching it.
It's just I'm making sure that they're not moving into Poland.
You don't know. How are you going to find out?
I'm watching people
Watch
uploading
TV and I'll tell you. Oh, yeah.
No, not TV. They
No, I'm
upload
watching-
from these
watching
things.
people uploading
On the
Maybe
ground.
so. You think they're not controlled in things? Come on. They're all controlled. If that's the case, tell them all. Everyone who uploads, tell them I'm back. You won't get one reply. Because the protocol 14, we will forbid Christ. And they know that they are fucked. Right? I ain't someone that is going to forgive 1 inch. Forgive them, Father, for they know not. Fuck them. They know exactly what they're doing. Right? That includes the Christians. Look what we've done, Lord, in your name. Fuck you too. Right? You tell them all, there's only one Christian I've got any time for, and that's the Pope. And that's not the Francis, that's Benedict. Right? They don't realise how fucking serious this is, that I am not one easy prick to get along with. Right? I am an arsehole, and I'm glad of it. Right? So, the Lord's an arsehole. Good. Now you recognise who's your judge. Right? He's not a happy at all. So, getting back to what we're talking about, they're poisoning the people in America, the fluoride, GMO, the gut of a person who is GMO eating the food, plus your synapses are all dead for the fluoride. You've got your chemtrails raining down on you. It's an amazing situation. You've got kids with 50 to 100 bloody vaccinations in the first 2 or 3 years. You've got all your soldiers that go overseas, they get vaccinated. You've got the Fukushima, you've got the Ronald Reagan who drops a bomb off the back of it to bring in the tsunami. There's only been one real tsunami, and that was in the 1800s in Alaska. All others have been manufactured. In fact, tsunamis were invented in New Zealand. Right? It was an Australian demolition expert working for the New Zealand people during the war that came up with the idea how to use the dropping a large amount of TNT into the water to set up a tsunami to ruin, say, Gallipoli, for example. Right? If they'd had that in the First World War, you'd have taken care of the Turks with one bomb. Right? So this is where it all come around to. So we've got this New Zealand thing, And what they're trying to do, and what Kathy has proven, is that you can't let off nuclear weapons. So therefore, the Samson option that the Jews are boasting that they got, if they can't rule the world, they're going to blow up everybody and take everyone with us, and making Hitler a hero. Of course, he's my hero anyhow, right? I'm a bit annoyed with Hitler because he didn't take them all out when he had a chance. This is fucking war, right? If he'd have taken all the Jews out then, and he's been blamed for doing it, if he'd have actually done it, there'd be no problem in the world today. Hundreds of million people would have lived. Right? There'd be no babies being poisoned. There'd be no babies being vaccinated because, and I should also add, it was the Jews that declared war on Hitler.
Exactly. 1930 boycott. Or ever since 1930. Yeah.
New York Jews did that.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. How many people know that? Well, you're not going to hear that on CNN, are you? You're not going to get it on your bloody phone either. Right? As I said, don't watch any of it. The big kahuna is back in town, and pretty soon, very, very soon, sooner than everyone expects, it's going to be shit at the fan. Right? Judgment.
Now, another one to deny you. You are not Jews, you are Khazars, barbarians. The Torah is bullshit. You are deluded, the Holocaust a lie. And a link to that.
And tell him I wish Hitler had have taken you out when he had a chance.
Back to the Khazarian Empire lands, which is
it's the Ukraine. Yes.
That's why they're getting rid of all the folk.
They can plan what they like.
It's not going to work.
It ain't going to work. All right, so what we then have is what is killing all the fish? Well, if you've got 40 to 50 million people on the California and Oregon coast, they're all having a shit every day, I guarantee it. Right? And that goes into sewage treatment. What happens to the sewage treatment? It goes out into the sea. So what's happened? With the chemtrails, it's raining down and that goes into your water and people drink it, and it also flows out to sea in the rivers. More of the chemtrail goes out to sea in the rivers than it does that actually is breathed in by the population overall.
Billions of washing machines a day with detergents.
Washing machines again, detergents.
Just saying in that video, fluoride.
Fluoride, exactly. Now, what happens is, once they started to realise that the fish are starting to die off because of the plankton is no more and the food chain is breaking down, they have to come up with a way of terrifying the world, and that is Fukushima.
Yep.
And all the gas clouds going across in the water and so forth.
Well, if you think about it, like all the things that they're bombarding us with, it's almost just like the death sentence they give you when you have cancer. They've already proven as soon as you receive a death sentence, your brain starts to systematically shut down the organs in your body.
That's right.
So they've got this.
Robert Beck came up with the idea at the same time as I was doing it with Electro Health, and I registered a company called Electro Health in Melbourne, right? Because that went over like a lead balloon too, because I could see where I was going with it. But Robert Beck, he was a man that was a little ahead of his time. He came up with the wrist pulse deal, and colloidal silver, and the cure for AIDS, and all this kind of thing, right? I spoke to his wife. People broke into his house, bashed him, and then he went to hospital, and they killed him in hospital. So they got rid of him. No. But what he was talking about was what I was doing anyhow. The difference is they can't kill me. I sure try hard. Don't work. So what we have then is a situation where America has been totally poisoned. They don't even know it. Right? We've got the children being vaccinated, and what is it, 50 to 60 in the first 2 years of life. Yes. We've got the Ronald Reagan that was supposed to be 100 miles off the coast of Fukushima, and they picked up the radiation from there. Whoop-ee, right? And then you've got 70 people that are suing the Japanese government for Fukushima because they're dying of cancers and all sorts of things related to the radiation poisoning, which is all bullshit. They've been vaccinated, and this is where all these diseases come from, because I talked to people in the Iraq War. When that was happening, the first Iraq War, I was talking to the people coming back from that, and I was telling them their symptoms, what was wrong with them. And I was saying, well, this is what you've got to do to try and fix it. So anyhow, there's 5,000 people on board the Ronald Reagan. 70 of them the sick. Now, if the entire ship, according to this Moray character, Lorraine Moray, she said that this ship is going back into service. Here it is highly radiated, yet they're putting it back in service. And she said if these sailors who look a bit out, they're going to be out of line, objectors, they'll be put on the Ronald Reagan and taken out to sea, and then they get radiated, and they'll have the same fate of the 70 people that is now. They can't sue the American government because the Americans got that sewed up. You can't sue the army, that's got that sewed up. But you'll sue Japan who's causing it. Like, hello. So, what's it all mean? There's 5,000 on board. How come they're not got radiation sickness as well? So they're saying, they use reverse osmosis filtration, taking the water out, and it's all radiated water off of Fukushima, and they're showering in it, they're brushing their teeth in it because they're using fluoride. So it goes on and on and on. How come there's only 70 people out of 5,000? Because they've been selected for the kill. And they'd been done away with as an example with the big vaccinations, whatever they put in.
Exactly. Mandatory vaccinations, especially when you're going on your razor trips in the military.
So these people are already pre-selected for the vaccination before they left port.
Probably given what they gave me.
So we can close out the show. Another final tweet to Bibi for tonight. Hitler did not do what he should have. Too good a man. Your greatest fear is yet to come upon you. I will do what Hitler did not do.
Send.
We need a photo of like Yah with a cowboy hat and 2 irons on his hip, just like.
Well, I've always said the Marshall's back in town.
Or no, even like a good old Uncle Sam photo, like I want you. I want Jews
dead. I want you dead. And it's going to happen, I can assure you.
I can't wait.
Fear him that can destroy both body and soul.
Oh, that can be
hell.
That can be the final tweet.
Who'd have thought years ago when Christ gets back he's going to be tweeting Netanyahu, right?
Yeah.
Now, he's a very educated man. You ask him how they make a mattress, he probably doesn't know, but he sure knows how to sell them.
If you need a coffee table, here's the man.
He's the man. Specialist in double beds.
Really?
That's what he done for a living before he became Prime Minister. He sold mattresses in New York or somewhere.
Chicago.
You know why they probably put him in power? It was because,
he's a moron.
Amin Amin, his soldiers killed his brother, and they're like, here's a Jew with a lot of hate. Throw him.
These days people don't suffer from human emotion.
No, they don't. That's it.
How about that? Fear him who can kill both body and soul in hell.
What?
You
Matthew
10:38.
Right?
You are in hell and about to go to the place of your soul's annihilation.
Let's put in the verse number, you can look it up.
Better keep talking, it makes it boring radio.
Is it Matthew 10:38?
We're on a roll. Let's keep going for tomorrow.
How about some Jew jokes?
And we're going to make a new Volkswagen with bigger ashtrays.
Let's just make the whole back seat one ashtray. How about that? We can just shovel the ash into the car.
Well, the prophecies are that the Jews that come good, they're all right. They'll be forgiven, right? Because these average people, I know some good Jews, right? But those bastards that are behind it all, there's only, these soldiers and all that kind of thing that are so insane, they're gone. There's no forgiveness. I had a friend of mine.
That are of that Talmud mentality.
Well, I had a friend of mine. He's 3 years older than me, and a Jew. And during the 7-Day War and all this, and his hype on because he goes over there to help the Jewish cause, right? And then he realised just how much they hate these Palestinians. And he said he couldn't believe the hate of these people. And the Mossad wanted his passport so they could use his passport, right? So he told him to get stuffed. And he come back to Australia and he said, that's it. Right? He said to me, I'm not going to change my religion, but every Christmas you'd go down and you'd get on the bread lines and you'd look after people and go to the old age pensioners, all Christians. Right? Christmas Day.
Good.
He was a Jew. Einstein was a Jew. He's a good Jew. A lot of good Jews out there.
Yeah, I was even thinking about my own experience with Jew. I was like thinking about all these ones I did have experiences with, but there was one kid I sat next to. His name was Aaron, and he was a good kid. He was a good kid. Me and him got along really well. I was thinking, and you would ask him, "What do you think of Palestine?" He'd go, "What's Palestine?" Is he the one? No.
So is that finished now?
That's it. We're well over. We've said all we're going to say to Bibby. It's 1:01:11. We're up to 11,196
Is that a 1
views. That's a 11196 Resurrection Day. Birthday and Resurrection Day. Hello. Conception
Be gentle
Day.
with me. I'm old and grey.
Oh.
Next is wobbling
Sorry,
around.
babe. Sorry. All right, let us say goodnight to all the dicks out there. To all the Richards.
So anyhow, the idea is to kill off as many Christians as you can, get them all poisoned. They're all stupid anyhow. But that's what they're trying to do. I'm not here for the oldies. You're all fucked in the head. I'm here for the kids.
Actually, the more we look at it, the oldies, and I'm talking about the golden gen, they've got more of a sense of what's going on than anybody else.
That's right.
Well, you've got to become like a small child to enter the kingdom of God. And that's on this earth here. That's the first one. When we get this straightened out, then we go and populate the whole universe.
That's the pre-television generation. They've still got some clue.
Exactly. The ones that you call your grandparents crazy when they're talking about you don't go messing around with the niggers, you stay with your own race. And them Jews, they're up to no good. We think they're crazy. We think they're absolutely nuts, but no, they got it right.
Oh, dear, dear. All right, is that it? Good night.
That's it.
Yeah.
So long, farewell.
Zig hail to you.